The story begins by introducing us to the super-rich Shiunji family. They own multiple mansions and have a huge number of servants. Basically, the family members don't need to do anything themselves. Everything is handled for them. In total, there are 7 siblings living together. Among them is Arata, a 16-year-old who starts off by questioning his brother Shion about how he managed to get a girlfriend. Shion casually explains that he didn't put in much effort. Things just happened naturally. Curious, Arata begins asking more questions. Shion, trying to ease the pressure on his older brother, reminds him not to overthink it. He reassures Arata that he'll eventually find someone and jokes that if things get too hard, he'll gladly switch roles and become the eldest son instead. As they talk, 5 of their sisters enter the room and ask what the two are discussing. Each sister has a distinct look and personality. Uka with her pink hair, Seiha with blue hair, Minami with green hair, Bandri, the eldest and arguably the cutest of the group, Kotono, the youngest sibling. Uka quickly catches on to the topic of their conversation and teases Arata about it. The others join in, poking fun at him. Shion adds to the mischief by joking that Arata had just been praising Uka's figure. Embarrassed, Arata blushes while Uka, clearly annoyed, instructs her dog to bite him, and the poor guy becomes the dog's next victim. Despite trying to defend himself, none of the sisters take him seriously. They even start accusing him of having twisted thoughts about them, making the situation worse. Thankfully, Bandri, the eldest sister, intervenes and silences everyone. At that moment, Minami steps in and sincerely says that Arata is actually a really good guy. Arata, touched by her words, tries to give her a hug, only to get punched squarely in the face. Turns out Minami is an athlete, and her punch knocks him to the ground effortlessly. Later, the sisters begin planning Kotono's upcoming birthday and ask if everyone is free on Sunday. Shion replies that he won't be available. He already has a date. Strangely, no one even bothers to ask Arata about his availability, adding another layer of insult to his already rough day. The scene then shifts to the next day at the train station. The 5 sisters catch everyone's attention. After all, they're stunningly beautiful. A group of guys can't stop staring, which makes sense considering how popular each sister is. They even have their own fan clubs. Shion, too, is extremely popular with both girls and boys. Arata, while not as well known, gets noticed for his well-built physique. After that, Arata and Shin are seen talking in the bathroom. Both of them are venting about how everyone around them thinks their life must be a dream just because they live with several girls. From the outside, it probably looks like some kind of fantasy, but the truth is far from it. It's way more stressful than anyone could imagine. Living with their sisters isn't just noisy, it's emotionally exhausting. Whenever something happens in the house, the 2 brothers always get dragged in completely different directions. It feels like they're constantly being pulled apart. On top of that, they're often getting hit by their sisters and aren't even allowed to fight back. What's worse is that their parents always take the girls' side. No one ever defends them. They've been getting smacked around since they were kids, and somehow it still hasn't stopped. We then get a quick look at each of their sisters. The oldest, Bandri, is currently attending a prestigious university and is working hard to become a nurse. Seiha, another sister, is basically a genius. She's the president of the science club and the top student at school. Then there's Uka, who excels in athletics, especially swimming. She's not just talented, but also incredibly cute, and everyone expects her to become the next student council president. Minami, another sibling, is super competitive and has already won the tennis championship 3 times during junior high. Her dream is to one day compete in the Olympics. Lastly, there's Kotono, the youngest. Unlike the others, she doesn't really have any standout talents. She's quiet, a little introverted, but ridiculously cute, and for some reason, that alone has made her surprisingly popular. In the middle of this, Shin casually drops a shocking bit of news. Apparently, Kotono once proposed to Arata. Hearing that, Arata completely freaks out and starts shouting, panicking about why Shin would bring something like that up out of nowhere. Afterward, the focus shifts to a girl that Arata actually likes. He's lying on his bed, phone in hand, debating whether or not to send her a friend request. But just the thought of getting rejected makes him anxious, and he ends up chickening out. Just then, Uka walks into his room to borrow some notes. She's genuinely surprised by how clean and well-organized his notes are. But things take a weird turn when Arata accidentally lets his eyes wander somewhere they shouldn't. Flustered, he blurts out something about her needing to wear more appropriate clothes. Auka, however, doesn't even react. She brushes it off like it's nothing, reminding him that they used to bathe together when they were kids. They've seen everything already, so to her it's not even a big deal. Then, as if the moment wasn't awkward enough, she suddenly asks him who he really likes. She even brings up the rumor that he has feelings for Lala. Arata is stunned, completely thrown off. He can't believe everyone knows, and he's convinced that Shin must have told them. Trying to be helpful, Oka grabs his phone and attempts to send Lala a friend request for him. Murata immediately panics and yells at her to stop. That sets her off. Oka snaps, throws a bunch of insults at him, and storms out of the room in frustration. Meanwhile, Kotono is sitting quietly, staring at a family photo. But she's not looking at the whole picture. Her eyes are locked on Arata, a subtle hint at her deeper feelings. The next day, Arata is at school, completely lost in his thoughts. He wonders what his life would have been like if he hadn't been born into the Shiunji family. No chaos, no 5 sisters constantly interfering, just peace. What would that kind of life have looked like? Then, right in the middle of his daydreaming, he sees Lala, but she's walking with another guy. In that moment, Arata feels his heart break. Like seriously, full-on heartbreak mode. That night, everyone's getting dressed up for Katano's birthday party. Arata puts on something nice too, and when Uka sees him, she compliments his outfit. She also casually mentions that their dad warned them they'd be punished if they didn't dress properly for the event. The family gathers for the party, but Arata's not really present. His body is there, but his mind is wandering to the future, to relationships, to marriage, to kids. He's spiraling hard. Then, out of nowhere, Uka and Minami start arguing. Their shouting escalates, and soon enough, the rest of the family is trying to calm things down. But it's no use. The whole place descends into chaos. Just then, Arata finally snapped and shouted at everyone to calm down. Shockingly, his voice actually worked. The entire room fell silent. The argument between Uka and Minami came to an awkward halt, and both girls suddenly felt self-conscious, casting their eyes away as the tension fizzled. Moments later, their dad walked in, casually calling everyone to the dining table for dinner. As they settled into their seats, he suddenly turned serious. With a heavy expression, he admitted there was something he had been holding back for years. He said he'd never had the courage to say it before, but he couldn't keep it to himself any longer. Taking a deep breath, he revealed the truth. Not all of them were real siblings. That one sentence dropped like a bomb. Everyone froze, unable to believe what they were hearing. It felt like the ground had disappeared beneath their feet. Their father went on to explain that, except for Minami and Shion, all of them had been adopted. He and their mother had made that decision together a long time ago, and now he promised to always be honest with them going forward. And then, just like that, he switched back to a cheerful tone, saying it was time to start the celebration. It was such a bizarre shift that no one knew how to respond. Celebrate? After something like that? Still, the party carried on. Later, all the siblings gathered in one room. Surprisingly, Minami acted like everything was completely normal. The conversation eventually turned to how, despite not being related by blood, they had grown up together and still felt like family. No one blamed their dad. They had always acted like siblings, and nothing could really change that. Sahana then looked at Bandri and asked if she remembered when Kotono came to live with them, back when Bandri was just 4 years old. Bandri admitted she didn't remember much from that time, but her face hinted at something stirring deep in her memory. She didn't say anything more, though. As the tension started to lift, laughter and jokes slowly returned. Bandri added that even though they weren't biologically related, they truly had become one big family over the years. Meanwhile, Arata was alone in his room, completely drained. His mind was a mess. The girl he liked seemed to be into someone else, and now he had to deal with the revelation that his family wasn't really his family. It was a lot to process all at once. Trying to shake off the weight of it all, he got up to take a bath, but as he walked into the bathroom, he was startled to find Kotono already inside. Panicking, he rushed out and shouted at her, frustrated that she hadn't made a sound or warned him before. But then something unexpected happened. Kotono quietly asked him to wash her back. Despite the awkwardness, Arata gave in and helped her. While doing so, he gently told her she was grown up now and shouldn't need help with things like this anymore. He mentioned how embarrassing it would be if her classmates ever found out. Kotono, unfazed, smiled sweetly and told him she liked his strength and his powers. Feeling too awkward to continue, Arata finished up and left the bathroom. At the same time, Uka and Shion were having a conversation of their own. They both agreed that the day had been nothing short of insane, and they especially felt bad for Kotono. It was her birthday after all, and hearing something so heavy on her special day felt cruel. Their conversation turned to Arata. Shion admitted that to him, Arata would always be his big brother, blood or not. Still, he couldn't help but worry about what might happen if the public ever found out about their unusual family situation. Just then, Arata, still deep in thought, was caught completely off guard. Kotono had snuck up behind him and wrapped her arms around him in a gentle hug. He stood there, stunned, unable to react. While Oka and Shun are having a casual conversation, the topic of sibling marriage comes up. The moment she hears it, Oka becomes visibly uncomfortable. The very idea seems wrong and disturbing to her. Shun, realizing her reaction, tries to explain himself. He says he only mentioned it as an example to make a point. He also makes it clear that marriage between siblings is completely illegal and strictly forbidden by law. As he continues talking, Oka begins to react with odd facial expressions, clearly disturbed by the topic. Shifting the conversation, Oka then brings up something that's been bothering her. She says Arata looks at her in a creepy way and has even made inappropriate comments about her clothes. Chun chooses to remain silent, unsure how to respond. Oka doesn't stop there. She also brings up an incident that happened in the gaming room involving Arata and Kotono. According to her, she saw Arata lying on top of Kotono in a very questionable and intimate-looking position. At this point, Shun is completely confused. He knows the truth behind that situation, but he's stuck. Arata had told him not to tell anyone. So, although he knows Arata wasn't really at fault, he can't explain it. Meanwhile, Oka continues forming her own opinion. In her mind, Arata seems like a terrible person, someone creepy, and someone who crosses boundaries with girls. All these thoughts are swirling inside her head. But the reality, as we know, is something completely different. Oka keeps talking, expressing her frustration, while Shun just sits there silently. He doesn't have any words left. Eventually, feeling that things have gone too far, Shun decides to break his silence and tell her the truth. He reveals that it was actually Kotono who confessed her love to Arata, and she was the one who pulled him on top of her. He explains the entire situation to Oka. Oka is left stunned. She can't believe what she's hearing. In disbelief, she starts shouting that it can't be true. Chun tries to calm her down and reassures her by adding that Arata rejected Kotono too. Still, Oka struggles to believe that Kotono has feelings for Arata. The idea sounds unreal to her. Seriously, something like that? Shun goes on to explain that even Kotono wasn't entirely at fault. Arata respects her deeply. But kids at their age often fail to recognize the difference between love and respect. Because Arata always cared for her and treated her kindly, Kotono mistakenly interpreted it as romantic love. Oka brushes off his explanation, saying it sounds way too deep coming from someone who's just 1 year older than Kotono. Now Shun begins to worry too. Ever since Kotono found out that she and Arata aren't actually blood siblings, he starts wondering what must be going through her head. Sure enough, sometime later, Kotono once again confesses her love to Arata. But Ara turns her down once again, telling her that he just can't be in a relationship with her. Hurt, Kotono asks if he sees her as someone that bad. She even tells him that she did her research and found out that step-siblings are legally allowed to marry each other. Arata gently responds, telling her that she's a wonderful girl. He admits that he does care about her deeply, but reminds her that she's still too young to understand these things. He tries to help her see that love, respect, and care are 3 very different things, and right now, she's mistaking care for love. Even though they aren't blood, Arata says he still sees himself as her older brother. And he promises her that he'll always be there for her and take care of her. After Arta left, Kotono became very sad. As Arta was leaving, a foot appeared, confirming that it belonged to a girl. Then a scene showed Dad looking at Mom's photo, saying that he had finally kept his promise. A monkey appeared, but the conversation between them remained unclear. Later, Arta entered his room and found Seiha already waiting for him. He was curious about why she was there and she asked him where he had been. He explained that he had been wandering around, but Seiha didn't believe him. Instead of answering his question about why she was in his room, Seiha began changing the subject, commenting on how his room was the smallest but felt the biggest and was the prettiest. She reminded him of a time when they were 10 years old and he had lost at rock, paper, scissors, which resulted in him getting that room. Arata was still confused about why Seiha was in his room. Suddenly, Seiha pushed him down and sat on top of him, leaving Arata shocked and unsure of how to react. Seiha reassured him that they wouldn't tell anyone about what happened and began clinging to him. Arata, still bewildered, wondered what was going on with everyone. First Kotono, now Seiha. Seiha then revealed that she had seen him and Kotono in the bathroom, and she had wanted to make sure nothing inappropriate was happening between them. Arata was shocked by her words and asked how much she had seen. Seiha confessed that she had heard everything and repeated some of the things he had said. She explained that she didn't want their sibling relationship to be ruined. Arata understood that Seiha was only trying to protect Kotono, but he thought there could have been another way for her to address it. Seiha also explained that in their country, sibling marriage was illegal and it could lead to serious consequences, such as having weak children if siblings married and had children. She acknowledged that it was wrong and mentioned that their father had even clarified that they were not siblings, which had made everyone worried about what might happen. Seiha added that technically, since they weren't actually siblings, they could now be physical. Arata was shocked and firmly rejected the idea, expressing that he didn't want that. Seiha smiled and said that she was glad to see he was still normal, just like before. Afterward, she left the room. Later, Arata sat in his room, still thinking about everything. He had always believed they were siblings, but now that he realized they weren't, it felt strange. The next morning, he was still lost in thought as he prepared for school. Just before leaving, he noticed that Bendari had dressed Kotono in a nurse's outfit, making her look very cute. Bendari teased Arata, which made him angry. Bendari, however, playfully continued to tease him, leaving Arata frustrated. On their way, Arata and Shion talk about how things got pretty intense the day before at their house, but still, everyone is acting as if nothing happened. The sisters are behaving normally, and no one has found out that they aren't actually real siblings yet. Arata is confused about how people would react if they ever learned the truth. The scene shifts to school, where we see what everyone is doing. Arata heads home, still thinking about what his sisters, especially Seiha, had said. The thoughts won't leave his mind. Just then, Minami appears, and today she doesn't have practice. Arata starts thinking to himself that Minami always seems so energetic, and seeing her now makes him feel like nothing ever happened the day before. They both start heading home, and Arata compliments Minami. She, however, downplays it, saying she already knows how great she is. Minami then praises Arata for being so good at sports. Suddenly, a bunch of girls surround them. To Arata's surprise, they aren't fans of him, they're all fans of Minami. They ask for her autograph, and Arata watches, stunned. Minami explains that she had taken a picture dressed as a boy, and after that, all these girls became her fans. Hearing this, Arata falls into a bit of a slump. Later, Arata says there's nothing else to do, so they start heading home. As they're walking, Minami reveals that she failed a test, which is why she's off today. Arata, not thrilled about her skipping study time, suggests that instead of taking a break, she should focus on her studies. He mentions how Minami excels in sports but is behind in academics at their home. In the next scene, Arata tries tutoring Minami. At first, she pretends to understand everything, but when he starts giving her a test, she completely freezes. Then, out of nowhere, Minami begins singing. After hearing her sing, Arata feels much better and even starts having fun with her carefree attitude. As they continue walking, Arata spots the girl he likes, but she's with her boyfriend. Arata hides, embarrassed. Minami notices this and eventually calls him out on it. On the way home, Arata advises Minami to study harder and mentions how he feels about the situation with his sisters. Minami then opens up, saying that she wants to know more about her real parents, like if she has siblings. She points out that technically Arata isn't even her real brother. She even jokes about calling him senpai from now on. Arata is surprised by this. Minami also tells Arata that she knows about the girl he likes and her boyfriend. Arata is shocked, wondering how she found out. Minami explains that Oka told her. This information makes Arata pretty upset with Oka. Later, at home, Minami gives Oka a cake and also returns some lost earbuds to her. Oka in turn gives the earbuds back to Minami, telling her not to lose them again. Minami leaves with the cake and the episode comes to an end.